Hi guys, and welcome to my review for the ORIVETI OH700VB. This is, as of this moment, the best IEM that ORIVETI currently offers. It's, as I mentioned, a hybrid. 6 BAs, 1 DD, in a very nicely, very classy package. This is the box, as you can see, very nice. I've got nothing against the whole waifu vibe, and all those that like it, kudos for them. But I prefer this more classy, more classical, more smart presentation. Anyway, that's it. That's just my personal taste. It's irrelevant. Very nice presentation. Sleeve, take it out. In the back, it's got some information about the IEM, 12 ohms impedance. I think it's one of the things that's worthwhile mentioning. It's got 112 decibels of sensitivity, so it's relatively easy to power. And then it's got a bass switch, which I'll get to it in a minute. But yes, it does work. It does do its intended purpose. The box then opens up in this fashion. The IEMs came obviously over there, and then you have a drawer which you open out. Inside here we have this box of accessories. Over there is the carrying case, and the box of accessories is something that's also very impressive. It's always a pleasure to see things presented in this manner. My only little attention to detail with regards to the accessories is actually the fact that this is the same accessories package that you get with the OD200. Okay, so it's a modular cable. The tip selection is perfect. Nothing wrong with the tips. A nice selection of silicones and foams. So really nice. And what do I say by it's the same presentation as the OD200? Well, when you talk about the OD200, which is priced at around $200, this is a seriously nice accessories package. When you are talking about an IEM which is closer to $700, which is the case of the OH700, you expect a little bit more. And although the cable is a nice cable, I'm not going to say that it isn't. I have to admit that I was expecting something a little bit more substantial. I'm not going to lie. As for the IEMs themselves, again, very typical ORIVETI design. I mean, ORIVETI has been around since 2015, and they've always had this very classy, very subtle design, nothing too over the top. Very classy. You can see inside, although the shells are not transparent, but you can see inside, quite easily. You can see the DD and the 6 BAs, and everything is nicely, nicely packed away. It's very neat. And then you got the switch, which you see here, which affects the bass. The bass on the OH700 is a tuck style bass, and basically what this does is, if it's in the on position, which is with the bass switch towards the outside of the IEM, it extends the point at which it tucks in further out. And if you then put it to the off position, it brings it earlier, makes it earlier. And with that, basically, you are changing the amount of mid bass you're going to get. I mean, it's a noticeable effect. I'm not going to deny it's not a noticeable effect, and especially in the technicalities, you do notice the effect of the switch being on or off. But personally, I left it in the on position because I just am seduced by the experience that this bass execution has in this IEM. I mean, if there's two things that stand out to me, or that stood out to me straight away, is how good the bass is. I mean, this is really good quality bass. It's deep, it's got plenty of power, plenty of presence. Everything that I listened to was more than well executed. And although some might think, oh, but it's colored and this and that, you know what? It sounds great. It sounds great. This is an indulgence. This is it's really good. The bass in the OH700 is something really, really special. That's the one thing that stood out to me. And then the other thing that stood out to me is how coherent. It's got a sound which reminded me very quickly of the SA6 from Duno, the Mark II. And the thing that I liked about the SA6 from day one was, first of all, being all BA, how good the bass was. And then it just sounded very smooth, there was no BA timbre. There's no BA timbre over here. But anyway, let me not jump ahead too much. As I was saying, The shells they look kind of conventional in the shape and so on, but they are fine. They fit beautifully, nice deep insertion. The tips work fantastically well with the IEM. There's really nothing that I can point as a negative in terms of its build. It's fine. It's got a nice solid build, resin shell, nice faceplate design, isolates nicely. Top. The only thing that I would like in terms of the build to have been maybe thought in a different manner is for this switch to have been a little bit more sturdy, because I feel that this switch can easily get caught, okay, and somehow it feels like it's a little bit too fragile for its good. So I'm not going to say go for that switch type that we see all the time. This was nice because it's something that you can put on and off on the fly, but maybe something just a little bit more sturdier. Okay, that's the one thing. And then maybe position it in a different place. Maybe position it on the top here where it might not be so prone to getting caught on something, or even me when I was using them, I put on my hoodie a few times to go and take a walk and listen to music at the same time, and putting the hoodie on, it got caught on the switch. To be, however surprising it might seem, it actually got caught here on the switch, and I had to be careful. So that's the one thing that I would like ORIVETI to perhaps think of an alternative solution. That's one. And then the other thing is the cable. Like I said, it's a nice cable. It's modular. It measured fine. It sounds fine. It's there's nothing. But this is $700 after all. At $700. You want something a little bit more that looks, at least I do, okay? The case, nice case, the same as the OD200. So in terms of its accessories and the presentation, the unboxing experience, everything, the fit, top marks, 5 stars. There's really nothing that I can point as a negative. Okay, what have I selected and how did I conduct this test? Okay, I selected the Duno SA6 MK2 for the reasons what I just mentioned. Selected the Tenso Mirai X because it's got a similar sound. Okay, actually all of these have got a very similar sound within a certain degree, obviously. The Mangit top and the Onion Moonlight Ultra. The SA6 we already know. Don't know, but I'll remind you, it's $579. It's a 6BA, fantastic, one of my top all BA sets that I go to. Very well priced. The accessories that it brings, the cable, everything, nothing to be said there. The same goes basically for the Tenso Mirai. Again, very nice accessories package, $399. An unusual setup in that it's a 2+4+1. 2 in that it's a dual diaphragm 8mm driver. 4 BAs, a mix of Sony and Knowles, and then it's got a third driver, let's call it that way, which basically does the same thing as the driver that we find in the LITZ S15. It basically controls the venting, okay, so avoiding any unnecessary driver flex, avoiding any unnecessary resonances caused by the amount of air which stays in front of the tip once the earphone is introduced. So once you introduce your earphone, okay, you have a certain amount of, you have a certain diameter and length which equates to a certain amount of volume of air, okay, and that resonates and has resonances. That venting system that they use there with that specific driver, it's just, you can see it there, okay, with that driver there. That system there allows for air to be vented out, and so avoiding any unwanted issues to happen, okay, in terms of the sound. The top 1+8, $530. It's got a mix of Knowles and Sonyans, 10mm beryllium driver or beryllium coated driver. Fantastic IEM. No switches on that one, so it's just as it is. We have a base switch on the SA6. We have a switches here on the Tenso Mirai. We have the switch here as well on the on the ORIVETI, and we also have switches here on the Moonlight Ultra. So this is the only one that doesn't offer any sort of adjustments, okay? And then finally the Moonlight Ultra, which is a 1+4+4, so single bio diaphragm DD, and then 4 BAs, 3 of them are nulls, one is Sonian, and then 4 Sonian ESTs. The price is $1,289. It's also the most expensive out of all of these IEMs. As always, price is always a very subjective things. Whatever things are worth is what they are worth to you. And okay, but if you ask me, what do I think of the prices? What do I consider the prices? Do I consider them balanced or not? Well, I think the price of the SA6 is within reason for what it is and what it offers. It's not, it's fair. The same thing goes for the Tenso Mirai. The manga top, yes, again, for the most part, I don't think, if it was just under the $500 bracket, I think it could have been a little bit more competitive, but it's fine. The Moonlight Ultra, as I mentioned when I did its review, I think that it's increasing price, considering that it was based on the original Ultra, Moonlight, which was just over $600. I think the increase in price was a little bit exaggerated. I think at the very most, the Ultra should have been an IM for around $750. And if it had been at that price, I have a feeling that the Ultra would have been way more successful. It would have sold way more units, and it would have been seen in a different light. As for the ORIVETI, the $700, I feel that, again, it's just a tad overpriced. This would have been better priced in the low 600s, high 500s. So something along the lines of the Duno SA6, upper $500, $600. I think that would have been a fair price, or a more adjusted price. The ORIVETI, again, I'm not detracting anything in terms of what they've offered, with regards to the accessories and the quality overall of everything. But you want to be competitive, and in essence, this is a 1+6. I mean, this is a Manga T top, a Manga T2. Okay, let's think of it that way. And the Manga T2 was a very good IEM, and the Manga T2 cost under $300. So I think you understand where I'm getting with this. Anyway, let's get into what we want to know, which is what it sounds like. And for that, I used, again, my topping. I used my Q15 as well from Fire. Excuse me. I used my topping here in X7 with my Yuki, with the Cayenne or U7, and with the full the Snowy Night. The majority of listening, and it wasn't intentional, ended up being with this, especially with the Snowy Night on its own and connected up to the NX7. It just happened that way, and I have to say that I actually was happy that I did it, because it enabled me to get obviously, again, more acquainted with the Snowy Night and how the Snowy Night interacts with these IEMs, because it's like I mentioned in my review that I did on dongles a few days ago. It's all very nice. Oh, the dongle has this spec and this signal to noise ratio and this much crosstalk and that much that and this, that, and blah, blah, blah. It's all very nice and dandy. Okay. But characteristics aside, and topping are known, for example, for being a brand that on paper has very impressive characteristics, and then not always does it translate into a sound which is pleasant or pleasurable. What is important is how does this unit then interact with the various IEMs that we connected to, okay? And when it's interacting with a single DD, it's one thing. When it's interacting with an IEM which has got several drivers and has a more complex impedance and a more complex set of electric characteristics, inductances and capacitances and all of that, obviously it becomes more important, and it can showcase better the IEM, or it can actually break the IEM. I found the Snowy Night, as I mentioned, probably my best suggestion if you want something around $100. In terms of sound, it has a sound which is very comparable to the Yuki, which is my reference in terms of the 43198 usage. I don't know exactly what is the amp section that they're using here, as I mentioned before. I know it's got the same DAX as on the Yuki, and the Yuki has got a discrete output stage. In terms of power, there isn't much difference. In terms of sound, the Yuki, I think the thing that distinguishes the two, and you don't pick it up always, and it's always very much IEM dependent, it's the Yuki just sounds a little bit more organic. That's it. If I have to really try and concise the differences between the two and bring it down to one single thing, This just sounds a little bit more organic, more realistic, okay, at least to my ears. Now the interesting thing, as I was mentioning, when I was using now these IEMs with these, and I use them, I use the Yuki as well on its own, and I use the Yuki with the NX7, I use the full, like I said, on its own, and then you connect it up with the NX7. I actually found that for some reason the full was interacting better with more IEMs than the Yuki. I found that the Yuki, for example, with the SA6 was good, but with the Tansio Mirai, it was okay. And by okay, I'm not saying it wasn't good, it was okay. The Aful did a better job. Okay, with the ORIVETI, I also preferred the ORIVETI on the Aful than on the Yuki. The Yuki on the top, again, it was, you know, fantastic. The Aful was very equal, and the Yuki on the moonlight was slightly better than the Aful. So it was close, but overall the Aful just slightly edged out the Yuki. Okay. Anyway, let's get into the sound. The sound of the characteristic, the main characteristic here of the ORIVETI is that it's got a tuck style bass, and it either tucks earlier or later, and thus affecting the mid bass energy that you will have. The rest of the frequency range, the mids, the upper mids, the treble, they are exquisitely done. I mean, honestly, the treble is perfect. There's no sibilance, there's no hints of B8 timbre. It is just a really, really well done treble. Vocals are very well done, male and female vocals. However, there are times that some vocals, especially female, they are, it's not that they are not well done, they are very well done, but I've heard slightly better. Again, the differences are very, very minor. These are all very high quality IEMs. So when I'm saying the differences are minor, I mean the differences are minor. And the one that kind of stood out in that aspect was the SA6 always seemed to have the female vocals just a little bit better than the ORIVETI. Okay, on those particular cases that I mentioned that the ORIVETI wasn't at its best. Okay, in terms of the bass is absolutely unreal. I mean, you guys, if you recall my review on the top, I mentioned it had an amazing bass. I mentioned as well when I did the review of the top that if you wanted a comparable bass but you didn't have the amount of money to spend for that, the Neo 5 from ISN was the perfect choice. It had the same sort of bass, the same sort of everything, and even at times it was perhaps even better. So the driver that they've got there is top notch, and it got amazing bass. This was actually able to outdo the bass on the top. Was it a huge difference? No, it wasn't a huge difference, but it outdid it. And it outdid it basically on the fact that because you have that switch, you can be more versatile, and it is ultimately more genre versatile than the top is. Okay, so the bass here is just unbelievable. It's got that nice, big, powerful presence. It's got good speed, good decay. It doesn't linger when it doesn't have to. It's a really, really well presented bass. Timbre and tonality of that bass is phenomenal. In terms of its technical capabilities, timbre and tonality are, I found, at least for my personal liking, are perfect. With the bass switch off, there will be more, those two characteristics will be even more accentuated, more realistic. With the bass switch on, it will color slightly, you know, certain things. Soundstage, I found the soundstage to be very good, better with the bass switch off than with the bass switch on. But with the bass switch on, I just liked that extra musicality, that extra engagement. And what I lost in terms of the soundstage was just a little bit of width, not so much the depth. The ORIVETI always has a very nice sense of space, something that you see as well on the SA6, something that you see very much well as well on the Moonlight Ultra. So detailed retrieval is fine. Resolution is could perhaps be just a little, let's say the detailed retrieval and the resolution could be slightly better considering its price, but it's fine, no issues there. It could be, and the reason why I say that is because of the way that they've tuned the BAs to be more relaxed and not so forward. Sometimes you feel that, okay, there could be just a little bit extra detail that you get, for example, on the Moonlight Ultra, that you don't get here. But on the Moonlight Ultra, you get that extra detail at the cost as well of sometimes it being just a little bit too much. So, you know, it's always a balance, trying to find here the right amount of everything. And it's not easy, trust me, it is really not easy. So, in terms of the technicality, the soundstage, it's fine. It will be dependent on if you have the bass switch on or off. Imaging is fine as well, depending again the switch will affect it or not. Detail retrieval and resolution, I think it's perhaps the one that's a little bit less compared to the rest of the technicalities. Timbre and tonality as well, for me, perfect, nothing to be said. In terms of its whole coherence across the board of the frequency range, perfect. It's seamless. You obviously notice a little bit more that subwoofer effect when the bass switch is off, so you notice a transition from the bass into the mids a little bit more defined. When you have the bass switch on, it becomes a little bit more seamless. It becomes continuous. You don't notice so much that transition. So there's not a break, let's put it that way. But, you know, musically, the musicality aspect of the ORIVETI has been very well done. No denying it, okay? The bad parts, well, the bad parts, the not so good parts, I basically have mentioned it already. It's the cable that I would have liked a better cable. It's the switch here of the bass switch, which a little bit, you know, it would have been nice if the bass switch had been something a little bit more substantial in terms of its robustness, because I feel that it might not last. And then, as I was mentioning earlier, the resolution and the detail retrieval are good, but for the price they could be a little bit better. Okay, so really, there's not really any major issues wrong with it. Okay, it will be, however, it will be a little bit genre specific. It will do certain genres better than others. It will do what I like listening to very well. Like I say many times and countless times, I don't listen too much to rock. So when I do listen to rock, always take that with a grain of salt. I might not exactly be giving it its fair assessment. But with rock, I didn't particularly like it. I'll be honest, okay? But with what I listen to, EDM, jazz, new wave jazz, R&B, pop, it sounds fantastic, fantastic. Compared then, you know, very briefly, and this is not so much a comparison to say it's better, it's worse. It's for you to guys to get an idea of what this is like. Compared with the SA6, I think these two are the most similar IEMs of all of them. I would even go as far as saying that this is the SA6 with the DD. Okay, the SA6 has got fantastic bass. I think it's just a very good IEM overall. I can understand that people maybe didn't fancy it, but I just feel that it's a much better IEM than its original, and one of the best BA IEMs out there, definitely. Where the SA6 edges out ever so slightly the ORIVETI is, like I said, on the vocals, the female vocals, and then in that detailed retrieval, because of the fact that it's a BA bass, which tightens up the sound even more, that detail retrieval, that resolution is just a little bit more tighter, a little bit more incisive, okay? Otherwise, the overall is very, very competitive, very similar sounding. Compared to the Tenso Mirai, the Tenso Mirai, depending on where you have the settings of the switch, so if I have the 010 setting, which is the one I mostly use, and again, keep in mind, it's not fair, we're comparing $400 to $700. I will say that the Tenso Mirai keeps its own very well, and it does deliver. It does deliver. It's got very much the same type of tonality, they're very much the same type of timbre as the ORIVETI. If I then put the switch on the 011 position, which boosts the bass, I then get a bass which starts becoming even more comparable to the bass of the ORIVETI in terms of quantity. The quality is basically always there in terms of how deep it can go. The one setting that doesn't make sense for me in the Tenso is the 110 or the 111, because that then just overemphasizes the bass too much for the rest of the frequency range, and it just starts making it very muffled. Okay, I just didn't like it in that setting. So I would say overall that bass performance is very similar. So if you have the Tenso, you can get a pretty good idea of what the bass will be here. It will be a notch, a step or two above. The mids, they are better on the ORIVETI. Yeah, they are better in the ORIVETI. Not monumentally better, but they are better. In terms of the treble, again, very similar, considering again the difference in driver count. And then in terms of the technicalities of the Tenso are very much on par with its price. Okay, the technicalities here again are very much on par with its price, apart from the resolution, which I think could be better. And that's where the Tenso edges out. Especially the ORIVETI. It's got a little bit better resolution than the ORIVETI. Okay. Going up against the top in terms of the bass as well, we have a very similar type of vibe, although the bass here is just that little extra more, it's got just a little bit more cubic inches, let's put it that way. Impressive. I cannot emphasize how much I was impressed by the bass on the ORIVETI. I really cannot, because it is really, really good. The top, in terms of the rest of the mids, the upper mids and treble, it just, although it's got 8 BAs, the thing that quite easily you pick up on it is it just sounds less polished. It sounds like it's a little bit more in your face. You notice occasionally the BA timbre. You notice occasionally a little bit of lack of smoothness here and there. So yes, the ORIVETI is a more well executed IEM when it comes to the whole BA section, and that translates then to not only the sound being a little bit more pleasurable, but more smoother, a little bit more nicer sounding without the necessary bad things that BAs bring along, which is that metallicness, that plasticness of sound. And that's basically it. In terms of technically, the ORIVETI is better as well. That's it. Compared to the Ultra, the Ultra obviously it's got not only a big price tag, but it's got the ESTs, and the ESTs do convey it that extra amount of detailed retrieval, that extra amount of resolution, that extra amount of twinklies and sparklies that does outdo well any of the IEMs here really. Whether or not you like that much detail, that's a different story, but in terms of overall detail, it outdoes any of the other ones here. The bass, because of the amount of energy that you have up top, doesn't sound as present as it does with the rest of these IEMs. However, I have to say that yes, technically, detail retrieval, resolution, imaging, soundstage is better than the ORIVETI. Not a lot better, but better. Not the price difference better, let's put it that way. In terms of the bass, I prefer the bass on the ORIVETI. In terms of the mids, I prefer the mids here. The upper mids and treble on the Ultra are slightly better. They just edge out on the ORIVETI. I also, in terms of the BA timbre and so on, I also didn't feel that there was any sort of BA timbre or metallicness or anything of the sort in terms of the Ultra. In that aspect, that's been very well done there. I mean, you really can't point that as an issue with the Ultra. The price is really the only main issue with the Ultra. The one other thing that I just want to mention is, although the Ultra brings a very nice cable, and although cables are again a subject prone to a big discussion, we can be here for hours debating whether they do affect, don't affect, and I really don't want to get into that. The truth is this: I tried this XINHS cable XINHS cable on the Ultra, and I tried to I was measuring some cables, and I measured this one. It measured good, and let me just give it a try. And I cannot emphasize how much the difference was noticeable. When I say it was noticeable, is it kind of took away a veil that was here on the moonlight, and that veil you probably wouldn't even have noticed it if you hadn't done this swapping of cables like I did, because when I listened to it, it sounded fine. It sounded like it had good detail retrieval, and then when I put this cable on, it just became that little extra more open, that little more extra more spacious. So I will say this much for the Yanyan. If you do have it, play around with some cables. Play around with some cables, as you might be surprised. Obviously, and as is always the case, the one of the main determining factors for the performance of an IEM if not the main one, the first one is actually the tips. I always try and have a tip that will allow for a deeper insertion. I will always try, and why do I do that? Just for the sake of you guys also knowing. It's going back to what I was mentioning earlier, that volume of air that we have in front of the ear, that inside of the ear canal between the end of the tip, or the beginning of the tip, which way you want to, and then the eardrum. That volume of air, the more controlled it can be, the better you can do away with certain resonances. And by control, I mean you want the volume of air to be there, to be a volume of air which pushes any resonances higher up as possible. That's my opinion. Some might digress, and you just have to look at the fact that when we are measuring it, the IEMs in the coupler, if we don't insert it deep enough in the coupler, or if we over insert it in the coupler, that 8 kilohertz peak moves, and that has to do with the amount of air that's then left, okay, between the end of the tip and the actual microphone when it's in the ear, between the end of the tip and the eardrum. And you want that peak that occurs to be out as much as possible into an area of your hearing where it will not be as prominent, as noticeable, so that it doesn't stand out and affect the overall performance of the IEM. So tips, very important. Cables, something which, like I said, don't go out and spend thousands of dollars on cables. Maybe get one or two nicer cables, maybe, I don't know, up to $100 if you think you can find the finances to spend that amount of money, and try it out, and seriously try it out in all of your IEMs. And eventually I think you will start finding cases where those cables will work better with certain IEMs than others. Will the differences be huge? No. But always keep in mind that when you are going to be doing those comparisons, make sure that you're using the same dongle, make sure that you're using the same style of music, the same volume. So try and keep the parameters by which you are comparing as close a match as possible. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. And then finally, like I was mentioning earlier in the beginning, whatever source you're using is very important. The one thing that I will say about the ORIVETI definitely is it works very well with this type of source, using this type of implementation of the 43198 DAC. I tried it briefly with the Q-Style with the M15, and it sounded amazing, clean, detailed, but I just preferred the musicality that I was getting with this synergy here. So the Yuki, the Aful, the Snowy Night, even the Dew. I actually tried out the Dew as well for a moment, and I don't know, maybe it's just a secret admiration that I have for Cirrus Logic, or maybe they just implement their decks in a different manner. They just sound always, to my ears, more organic, more realistic. All right. Anyway, guys, I'll show you now the tips and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the ORIVETI OH700. Let me just first of all clear up all of these graphs so that we can start seeing things a little bit more clearer. Okay, so this graph that you see here is the graph of the ORIVETI with the bass switch on, and that's with the bass switch off. So basically the same side. I mean, the differences that occur here are so minor that I'm just going to attribute them to some coupler interference, something. So as you can see from the bass switch on to bass switch off, what basically changes is the point at where the bass goes flat. If it's off, it's just over 100 hertz. If it's on, it's about 200 hertz. So it gives us just that little extra mid bass there. And that's how I actually ended up listening to it, was with the bass switch on. I just found that this made more sense. The rest, as you can see, it's, I mean, absolutely, in my books at least, spotless. I mean, we're talking about the meat of the mids and the upper mids and the treble all sit within a window of roughly 7 dBs, give or take 7.5 dBs. So that's again, like I said, in my books, that's spot on. And then this bass, because all of the emphasis is basically below 100 hertz, It's just honestly, you have to hear the OH700. Granted, it's not a cheap IEM, but the truth is they've done their work properly, and there's a magical thing about the IEM once you start listening to it, and start changing songs and this song, and it's really something else. Before we carry on, I just want to show you something here quickly with regards to the Tensio Mirai, which is, where is it now? Exactly, number 17. 19, and I believe 20, exactly. Okay, this is the Tensio Mirai, the X, with the different, the lowest bass setting that you see here is the 010 setting, which is the default setting. And then the other two settings, that's 011, and that top one is 110. These two settings here actually are not bad, and I have to admit that now that I've listened to the Tensio Mirai for a longer period of time, if in the beginning I was mainly stuck on this bottom setting, I have now started to listen to it mainly in the middle setting, so the 011 setting, which is what I did for the remainder of this review. The top setting, I just find that it's just too excessive, and it just starts muddying things up, and it's not a nice, I just didn't enjoy it in that way. So this was the setting with which I listened to the Tensio Mirai. Now, let's start. And since I have a Tensio Mirai, let me put the ORIVETI back up. ORIVETI, where are you, my friend? ORIVETI. There we go. Okay, so that's the graph of the ORIVETI and the Tensio Mirai. The Tensio seems to have a lot more bass, at least graphically, but we mustn't forget it's an 8mm versus a 10, so different area displacement, surface area displacement. And then the difference that you do notice mainly is that the Tensio, although very well done in the upper mids and treble, I mean, there's really nothing I can honestly fault at it. The ORIVETI is just that little bit more polished. It's not a monumental difference, no. It's honestly, it isn't a monumental difference, but it is a difference that you will pick up here and there, especially in terms of the BA timbre. But the truth is, it's really well tuned, and actually, if I use the 010 setting, which is the stock setting, you can see that it even approximates itself more to the setting of the ORIVETI. So they actually look much more similar, and the truth is they do sound similar in a lot of instances. You do notice that yes, in this setting the bass is thinner, it's not as impressive, although the X does have really impressive bass. That's undeniable, but it's not as impressive. And then once you do put the 011 setting, this one, then the bass becomes, at least in terms of quantity, almost identical. Okay, so that's the Tensio Mirai. Now let's put up here, this is the manga top, exactly. Again, it's also got that tucked style of bass, and although you would look at it this and think, okay, it's got more mid bass, less sub bass, when you're listening to it, it's not you do notice just a tad more slam here and there, but not a big difference. I still honestly prefer the bass of the ORIVETI. I just gravitate towards it a little bit more. Where you do notice the difference is in the execution of the upper mids, of the treble, of the upper mids and the treble. It's just a little bit more grainy on the top compared with the ORIVETI. The ORIVETI is ever so smooth, and you'll see in a second why it's so like, you'll understand. It's really, really well done. Okay, so that's that. This one now is the Yanyan Moonlight Ultra, and the similarity between the two of them is absolutely, I mean, I think it speaks for itself. However, when you do listen to it, and this has to do with what happens over here in the Yanyan, this area here of the Yanyan is a lot more energetic than what the graph would lead you to believe. So automatically the bass is clean, it is detailed, it is dynamic, it has got good
everything, but it's not as potent. It's not as enveloping as the bass of the ORIVETI. The bass of the ORIVETI surrounds you. Okay, so that's the difference that you don't notice. The Yanyan more detailed, more crisp, more twinklies and sparkly. The ORIVETI more organic, more enveloping, more kind of it's not that it's soft or pillowy or anything sort. No, it just involves you more. Okay, just grabs you more. And it's although, and I've said it already quite a few times, they are all excellent sounding IEMs, all of them. And then finally, over here we have the duno. Let me actually just change the color of the duno for something that will stand out a little bit more. Let me make it red for the sake of comparing it. And this is the duno, the SA6. And if you look at this part of the mids, upper mids and treble, I think that's where they are very, I mean, it's actually quite impressive to see how similar they are. That sensation of non-BA timbre, that smoothness, it is just very well done on either one of them. And then the bass on the SA6, considering it's BA bass, and it's using the famous Sonyan 38D1Xs, I can understand people that just didn't like it. Fine, all good. But it's the same thing like the Helios SE. The Helios SE has been one of the IEMs that I listened to recently that has impressed me the most. Because, okay, fine, so it doesn't have as much mid-bass slam as maybe you would ideally like in one or two songs. But the overall presence of that sound, that bass, it is just magical. Same thing happens with the SA6. The same SA6 offers me that same sensation. If I actually have to say SA6 Helios SE price for price, duno SA6, the Helios SE, although I love it, and if I do get the opportunity to get my hands on a set, I will definitely buy it. It's not twice the value or in terms of performance as compared to the SA6, and I think the SA6 honestly hasn't gotten enough love, and it's always down to people just getting caught up in because the graph and because this and because that and blah blah blah, and it's really quite tiring sometimes. Honestly, it really is. But anyway, rant aside, the SA6 and the ORIVETI, and it's like I said in my review, the ORIVETI is the SA6 with a DD. And you notice this extra rumble there, but the rest very, very equal. So there you have it, guys. I mean, fantastic IEM, the ORIVETI, honestly, fantastic. I wish it was just a little bit cheaper. I really do. I think if it was just a little bit cheaper, a lot more people would be paying attention to it, and a lot more people would be saying, "Wow, okay, this is something special." But hey, it is what it is. Obviously. I'm sure if they market study and they believe this is the correct price, fine. But again, it's just a pity when you see something with so much potential just get maybe held back slightly by a price point which isn't the ideal. Like I mentioned, this in the low 600s, high 500s, this would be honestly a real killer. It is, because sonically I prefer this to the mang, and I like the top, mind you. I really do like the top. I prefer this also because of the way that it's done, but I actually prefer it ultimately over the Yanyan, although I'm not detracting anything from the Yanyan. And as I mentioned earlier, the Yanyan with this cable that I've actually got it going on, wow, it really impressed me. But the problem of the Yanyan, once again, it's its price. The Yanyan should be priced maximum $700-ish, $700. It would have been an absolute beast. If they had actually been able to make it at this basically the same value as the previous model, which I know is going to be difficult, but $700, it would have made a killing in terms of sales, I think. Honestly, I really do, because it is a good IEM. That's it, guys. I'm not going to drag this on anymore. Any questions, please feel free to ask. As always, like and subscribe. And yeah, let's see if I carry on doing some reviews for you guys and getting this channel to grow, and get the message out there that, anyway, that's it. Take care now.